He's getting older.
Pour some sugar on me!
Oh, hit the volume button!
But not wiser.
Pay that man his money!
This is The Lefty Show.
Welcome, everybody, to The Lefty Show. I am your host, Lefty. Glad to be here with all of you today, Friday. Aloha Friday, everybody. Welcome to The Lefty Show, episode number, what do we got here? 105. Today, Friday, the 24th of October in the year of our spaghetti monster, 2014. Got plenty to talk about on today's Lefty Show. Got a lot planned. Hope you guys enjoy. Thank you to everybody for joining, and thank you to everybody for watching, liking, favoriting, and subscribing on YouTube. YouTube.com/LeftyOX is where you can find the show in its YouTube formation. You can also find gaming content, vlogs, and podcasts there. That's youtube.com/LeftyOX. Apologies. I'm just playing a little bit with some levels here. Let's get some. Sorry. Yes, I know. On-air production. This is not even a production meeting. This is literally trying production things. To see how much it's moving the meter. All right, so we're back there. Shut up. Sorry, I tried something different with, where the volume and gain gets applied and just going through the open there. I wasn't a big fan of it. It didn't give me a lot of volume control. So I had to quickly try to go back. I think I would say I'm about there, right? You know what I'm saying? About there. Just kind of about. No, I can't mess with it because that's getting boosted. All right, sorry. You guys can't even see what I'm doing. Back to the propers. Thank you to everybody for following me on Twitter, which you can do at Lefty643. That's just twitter.com/Lefty643. Thank you to everybody that's been donating to the show. I'mRaising.com/643 Productions is where you can do that. Remember, that's I'mRaising.com/643 Productions. That's where you can do that. Thank you to everybody that has been sharing the show, helping the show grow by sharing it with friends, family, and co-workers, which is easy to do now. Find the show wherever you get your podcasts for your PC, tablet, or mobile device. Android, iOS, it does not matter. Search The Lefty Show wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to subscribe there. Download all the episodes at your leisure, and then you can share the show with friends and family and say, hey, look, here's this guy saying things, and they say, what things? And you say awesome things. And then they say, okay, I will listen myself. And they say, well, how do you find it? And you say, well, where do you get your podcast? And they say, well, and you go, oh, well, just go there and search The Lefty Show. That's as easy as it is. And it does a great bit to help out the show. And I thank you all for doing that. All right. Got a red letter from a previous show, and I said it on Twitter, but I'll say it here as well, just in case you missed it. Thank you to everybody that's and again, following me on Twitter at Lefty643. Stay up to date on all the latest and greatest Lefty Show news. I talked in a show about Manga and its pornographic nature, and my point, or what I said, was that I made a blanket generalization saying that manga is pornographic. That if you are a collector of manga, the very popular art, I believe it's like a style. I want to say it's a style. It's not any one story. My cursory research, after some people said, hey, you're wrong about this, said that there's a couple different types, actually appealing to many different kinds of people. There's some that appeal to homosexual males, heterosexual males, heterosexual females, and I believe some even that's homosexual females in Japan. There's a bunch of different type of manga with different monikers. And I made the statement that all manga is porn. And I said, don't try to tell me when you get arrested for having child pornography drawings, which I will defend. I'm going to be, no matter what I think of manga, and I hope people didn't confuse that. No matter what I think of manga, no matter what manga actually is, whether its sole purpose is to be pornographic, whether its sole purpose is for guys or whomever to look at it while they touch themselves, or whether it's to tell a story or to be funny or this or that, whatever its purpose, the notion that you can be arrested for lines on paper or pixels on a screen, completely non-representative of an actual photograph or something that actually happened, that's appalling and absolutely wrong. And that was the crux of my argument. But I went off the rails a little bit saying, don't try to tell me that your little manga thing isn't pornographic. When you get arrested for it, don't try to say, oh, well, it's art. I read it for the story. Bull crap. You use it because you... And I was wrong. I was wrong about that. That's not all of manga. There's apparently a whole lot. Pokemon is apparently manga. Bleach. All those kinds of things. I will maintain this, though, which I guess is kind of detracts from the whole apology thing. But I think there's a legitimate point to be made. And that is the kind of manga that would get you arrested, regardless of how bullcrap the laws are, because they are bullcrap. Don't get me wrong. They're bullcrap. They're just bad. All right? But the kind of manga that anyone, puritanical as they may be, would say that's obscene and wrong, that kind of manga doesn't sneak up on you. And that kind of manga. And it's not just hentai, because hentai is solely pornographic, but there is also, cursory research again, told me that there is a lot of, a good portion, I won't say a lot, I'll say a good bit of non-pornographic manga contains eroticism. It gets erotic, graphically so, at time to time. Now there's other story elements to the plot and to the book, to the drawings, but there are set pieces of eroticism. And my point is, that doesn't sneak up on you. It doesn't sneak out. You're like, wow, look at this 14-year-old girl with an octopus. Whoa, wowza. Didn't see that one coming. Huh, this is a real page turner, huh? Let's see what happens next. That doesn't happen. You know the kind of manga that you're buying, and you know why you're buying it. You're not buying the manga that shows that eventually shows two schoolgirls or schoolboys going at it graphically. You're not buying that for the story. You're not buying that for the art or the ink work or anything. You're buying it because, and that's okay. But I was wrong to represent all of manga as that way. That's not the way it is, and I was wrong. Got it wrong. See, mea culpa. There it is. But I still maintain that, again, the kind of manga that you want to, which is the same kind that people would label as obscene, you're buying that and collecting it for a very specific reason. Very specific reason. You can have a Pokemon collection, which I didn't know Pokemon was a comic book. I, as a red-blooded American, only know it as the television comic series. But you can have a Pokemon collection that rivals any other, and nobody's going to say boo to you. But you get the ones that show the doe-eyed teenagers getting plowed. Well, you know where that is. You know where that is in manga, and you know where that's going to show up. So you play a hand in running afoul of a very draconian and quite scary law, but you play a hand in it nonetheless, because you know where it is, and don't deny it. Don't deny it, because to say that, well, no, I read it for the story. No, because the stuff with graphic eroticism in it, that's why you're buying it. I'll refine my point a little. mostly because it was wrong before. But you buy hentai for a reason. Similarly, you buy the graphic eroticism for a reason. It may be bookended in chapters or pages, however it's broken up by real narrative devices, but there's still that couple of pages or couple of tiles where they show the schoolgirl getting it. And that's why you buy it. Don't try to tell me otherwise. Don't try to tell me otherwise. No. You're just one of those people that you actually watch the entire porno. You're like, oh, well, I wonder if she's actually going to get her pipes fixed. Oh, well, okay. And then you're the kind of person that when they're done doing that, hey, baby, can I fix your pipes? And then they do the thing. Then you're wondering, like, all right, so are they going to fix the pipes? Because this character really needs to develop. I need to know whether this character is a certified plumber. Is he part of the union or is he a non-union scab? What's the deal here? What's his story? But you're still watching the porn. And you're still watching the porn for a very specific reason. You'll watch the crappy acting and the crappy setups and writings and narratives and wardrobe and all that because eventually you're going to get to a few. That's the point that I should have made, but it's not the point that I ended up making. So to end on a I guess a more friendly note, I was wrong in labeling all of manga as being pornographic, which it is not. It flat is not, and that was untrue, and I apologize for that. And a few people have been asking me about. Oh boy, they've been asking me about the Ottawa shooting, and they expected. It was weird because I don't want to become like your hired gun. Like, oh, I'm going to send this to Lefty. Oh, he's going to tear it down. He's going to rip him a new one. Because, and I fear that, you know, the format of the show and the sound, rubbing up against the microphone. Shouldn't do that. Bad technique. I fear that perhaps the format of the show and sometimes the air that it takes on will lend itself to this. But people were coming to me and one person in particular wanted me to, they said the word rant over and over. And what do you want me to rant about with respect to the Ottawa shooting? Now I'm going to rant about it, but I don't know if it's going to be the rant you want. I'm not the rant you want. I'm the rant you need. This is the rant you need. That should, oh God, that's a great segment. I'm writing that down. I'm writing that down right now. Could be a weekly damn segment, something. All right, let's put it in quotes. The rant you need. There we go. It's a great segment. Yeah. Programming my show on the air. That's how the pros do it. But this guy, I want you to rant about the Ottawa shooting. If the crazy guy in Ottawa got a gun early Thursday morning, was it Wednesday? Anyway, earlier this week, and went to the tomb of the unknown soldier in Ottawa and shot one of the guards who later died, then went to Parliament, got into the House of Parliament there, and was engaged in a gun battle with what I thought was a ceremonial position, the Sergeant at Arms. But apparently the guy's packing. He's packing heat. He's a good shot too because he killed the gunman. 1 KD for those keeping score at home. And I don't really see anything to rant about. I mean, I'm not from Canada. I don't have my finger on the pulse of the news story here. So I'll say this, Canadians, to my Canadian brethren. But the worst part is that your founding document is not my founding document. And I saw an interesting question on Reddit today. Somebody asked, why are Americans so enthralled with the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms? Why is it such a big deal? And I'm not one that's familiar with the founding document, whatever it is, or the founding instrument of Canada. and their government. But from an American perspective, the reason that I am very circumspect when it comes to gun legislation, gun restriction of ownership, restriction of use, or restriction of possession and how to possess and display, et cetera, et cetera. The reason I'm very circumspect about that, and the reason I hope many Americans are, is because the gun is simply a manifestation of something larger. When I protect gun rights, I don't care about the thing, the gun. I don't even own a gun. I don't even know if I want to ever own a gun. I've got a brain issue where if I have some kind of sleep interruption, I sleepwalk. And I don't know, I've got no control over what I'm doing there. And it was a dangerous thing. I don't even know if I want a gun. I think guns are cool, all right, but I can also recognize that they're very dangerous. And number two, expensive, but number one, dangerous. And I don't know if that's a smart thing. I don't know if it's very smart. I'm nothing if not dumbass, but again, once in a while, a fortnight, if you will, the brain goes, here's something good. And that I believe is my stance on owning a firearm. But I will defend the rights of people to own firearms because, and again, I don't care about the gun. It's about the right. And the right associated with owning a firearm is enshrined in one of the most sacrosanct parts of our founding document here in America, the Bill of Rights. It's number 2. Because remember, when they wrote the document, all those years ago, the late 1700s, when they wrote that document, they had just finished fighting a war in which they were armed civilians overthrowing a tyrannical, they saw, government. The government to them was tyrannical, and they weren't British soldiers. They were just people. And they armed themselves, and they were able to arm themselves and fight for their freedom. And they won, and they thought, maybe it's a good idea for the people, and get out of here with this. It actually means the militia. It's the right for the militia to bear arms, because it's not. It's a list. It's not the right of the people. No. It goes the militia and comma the right of the people. It's the militia and the people, 2 separate entities, have the right to bear arms. Not the militia is to be made up of the people. There's a weird wording that people use to try to say, "Oh no, it doesn't really say that the people can bear arms." They're talking about the militia. No. Because it's a comma, and that kind of speech doesn't appear anywhere else in the Constitution. They were writing a list of things that have the right to bear arms and there shall not be abridged, etc. And I think it's important to preserve those rights and to not chip away at them without at least having an honest discussion. So in the wake of a mass shooting, there's many people that are outraged, and rightly so. And many people are emotional. Again, rightly so. I think if you're a politician, maybe the onus is on you to be a little bit more even-keeled. But we're all human after all. But I think it's important to protect those rights. Not because the gun is so important. The rights are so important. Because once you start allowing emotional, outraged inroads into the manifestation of rights, because, oh my God, this mass shooting happened. It shouldn't happen. It's awful. So we've got to pass this law to abridge in some way, or in some way restrict the right of people to keep and bear arms, because that's what gun legislation is. It's abridging the right of the people to keep and bear arms. The question is it reasonable? And I think that, especially in the wake of a shooting, it's a really, really dumb idea to start calling for and passing legislation because you cannot assume rationality. You can't assume it because everybody's outraged. Everybody's their agenda for their constituents, or they want good press or whatever. You can't assume rationality. Certainly, there are rational and reasonable ways to abridge the right to keep and bear arms. That's been something that we've said, all right, these 10 rights are very, very important. These 10 things, so important, but they're not absolute. Even then, even though they're so important, they're not absolute. Time and place, that kind of stuff. Because even though I have the right to free speech in the Constitution, number 1 on the list, I can't go into a crowded theater and yell fire and then claim constitutional protection. It's not protected speech. Similarly, there's a discussion to be had on what kind of firearms or weaponry is appropriate. Is it appropriate for people to keep and acquire Abrams tanks? I don't know. I think there, not in the discussion on whether the right to bear arms should exist. Because a lot of people like to use the argument, well, what did the founding fathers mean? Or what was the technology? What was weaponry like then? And they use that to argue against the right to bear arms now. Because, well, AR-15s weren't a thing in the 1700s, and they wouldn't have allowed for that, blah, blah, blah. So the right to bear arms is da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I say, no. What was the technology like when the law was written is an argument not to do away with the right completely, but in a manner type restriction. Okay, you have the right to bear arms, but there are some things that aren't really reasonable because there weren't nuclear bombs when the Constitution was written. There were cannons, but even then, cannons were... What was the rifling technology? There was like some kind of primitive rifling then, wasn't there? I remember something on the History Channel. But cannons weren't rifled. They were just big iron balls being shot at people. And, they would shoot and then roll really fast. They weren't huge explosions. They weren't fighter jets or anything like that. Okay, that's a reasonable discussion to be had. But overall, I think the right is what is important. Again, the gun, the thing, it's about the right. Because that's important. And if you start chipping away at that, and you allow sensationalism and you allow emotion to immediately influence any number of the 10 rights that we deem to be really, really, really important, you got yourself a problem, my friend. I think you have yourself a problem. But that's America. It's not Canada. I don't know. I don't want you to rant about this. What do you want me to say? It's sad. The Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, I've seen, not of the Canadian variety, but I see what we have in America. And if you listen to this show, I'm one that's not long for the military, or I'm not one that's long for loving the military. But from the videos I've seen, that Tomb of the Unknown Soldier things, that's pretty cool. The discipline and the respect. I think that's some pretty cool stuff. And I assume that it's similar in Canada, what was happening in Ottawa at the time one of the guards got shot. And I'm not going to be like, oh, well, yeah, well, they got one of them. Good. Yeah, baby killer's dead. No, man, the guy was a disciplined, never mind that maybe he was brainwashed a little bit into the flag over everything else, the flag, the Corps, like the Marine Corps here in America. And he said in his address, the Corps. I forget what that's from. What is that from? Ah, Jesus, it's going to bother me now. Ah, damn it. The Corps. I have no idea. I have it in my head. I don't, is it a movie? TV show? I hate when that happens. Never mind the fact that the guy the possibility that the guy may have been a little bit brainwashed into that respect, and the honor and the code and all that stuff, but he still did it. and wasn't hurting anybody, and it's an awful. And attacking Parliament or trying to attack Parliament, that's a bad idea. And it was really cool that the sergeant at arms is actually strapped and shot the guy and then showed up to work the next day. I believe it was on Thursday. That's right, it happened on Wednesday. And on Thursday, they showed the sergeant at arms being announced as they do every day to open a session in Parliament there. And the guy got a standing ovation. And it was a really, really moving scene because here was a guy who the day before, who wasn't, this isn't like, oh, you protect us, right? Because you get the sergeant at arms. Oh, you're supposed to protect us. No, it's not his job. It's all ceremonial crap. But then when push came to shove and there was death a-coming, he stood up and was, I'm going to stop this. And he did. And then he showed up to work the next day. That's cool. Wow. All right. The balls on that guy. That's some impressive stuff. The only rant I have, and again, I don't have my finger on the pulse of Canadian culture, but if people are using this, and I hope it doesn't happen in America, I'm sure it will, but this should not be, the more and more I read about it, this should not be a discussion on gun restriction, gun legislation. This should not be a discussion. This should not be brought up. It shouldn't be brought up. In America, I mean. Again, Canada, I don't know. Because, listen, Canadians, if it's not in your founding document, one of your rights is the blah, 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 like we have in America, well, I got nothing for you. Then owning firearms is, I don't know, it's trickier. It's easier in America because it's the founding documents. In 1776 was when people were like, this is important. But if owning firearms isn't, I don't know. But I would say, at least in America, I don't want to hear about how, well, look, now we need to make it harder to get guns. Or we need to make it harder for people with mental illnesses to get guns. Because, listen, the question of whether I have a mental illness is none of your damn business. None of your damn business at all. Isn't HIPAA a thing? It's funny because people love to trot out HIPAA. Hey, what's wrong? What's sick? I can't talk about it. HIPAA. That might be a HIPAA violation. And HIPAA violations are a serious deal. You don't go around screwing around with HIPAA. You don't. If you've got, if you are in an accident and you want to have somebody in the doctor's room with you and you want the doctor to be able to communicate with them, you have every single time you go to the doctor, you have to sign a HIPAA release. Every single time. It's a big deal. But when a shooting happens and the shooter ends up being crazy pants, like pants on head crazy, then it's, we need to make it harder for the mentally ill to get guns. Oh, well, how do we do that? Well, let's have a database of people with mental illness. And so if you go to buy a gun, you'll be part of a database, a federal database, and the gun seller will say, no, I'm not selling you this gun because you're mentally ill. Well, you just rip up HIPAA then. What are you doing? Which is more important? The privacy between somebody and their healthcare provider, or maybe this guy has something that maybe he will use this gun in an inappropriate way. I vote HIPAA every day of the week. That's more important because the crazy person, if somebody's got borderline personality disorder or somebody's a sociopath, that does not mean that they are buying a weapon, because to deny them a weapon when they try to go buy one is to say, we believe you are going to do bad things with this. We are assuming that you are going to use this improperly. Well, just because I have borderline personality disorder or I'm a sociopath and it's documented, or I'm bipolar or something, does not mean necessarily that I'm going to misuse a firearm. And also, if I'm the kind of crazy where I one day just may snap and want to kill people, is not having a gun legally really going to stop me? Do you really think that's going to happen? Look at how many stabbings occur by crazy people in the UK. China. How many crazy people there just go nuts and start stabbing people? If you're crazy, if you're the kind of crazy where you snap and you want to go kill somebody, not legally obtaining a gun is the least of your problems. You're finding a way to kill people. Maybe a little bit harder now, but you're finding a way to kill people. So you're not really doing anything but violating people's HIPAA regulations, violating people's HIPAA rights. We have a right to be confidential in our healthcare practices. But, guns. Ooh. So I don't want to hear about how we need gun regulation, firearm legislation. I don't want to hear it. No. This is a crazy guy doing crazy things. And more reports are coming out. A drug-addicted, extremely religious, crazy person. Now, who didn't see that coming? Honestly, I want to know who didn't see the religious thing coming. Who didn't see it? When are we going to just, religion's some pretty weird stuff, man. It's like garnish to crazy people. It's like they're crack. And this guy also smoked crack. But it's time and time again, you hear about one of these people that just goes up and starts killing people, goes up and crazy, gets a gun and tries to go on a rampage or does go on a rampage. More often than not, if I remember correctly, the last couple, they've been heavily religious. Now, crazy too, which is not to say that being religious caused their craziness. Not to say that anything like that. But they were crazy and they had the backing of religious fervor to then go on, and that's maybe where they drew some strength to go commit these atrocities, to go try to hurt people. They're crazy religious people. Well, not all religions like that. I know. Yes, I know. Not all religious people are psychos who at one point are going to snap and start shooting. I know. But I want to know why I'm reading a story, about how Michael Zehaf Bibu at 3 a.m, the day of the shooting, was in a stairwell praying. He was a very, very devout Muslim, a radical. And his family said incredible drug addiction problems, found religion, became deeply religious, moved to Ottawa from, I want to say Montreal. And now he just went crazy. And again, it's the crazy. We'll focus on the crazy here. But keep in mind, religion, I want to talk to you. We're going to talk about crazy. But afterwards, at some point, we need to have a discussion about religion as a whole. Because religion as a whole, not Islam, not necessarily Islam or anything like that. I'm just talking about religion because you provide a way, an easier way for crazy people who are on the verge of doing bad things to find the strength, to find the resolve to do the crazy things they do. You don't make them do it. Religion doesn't make you do it. But if you're a crazy person, if you're a schizo, if you have borderline personality disorder, and then you become devoutly religious, whether it be Christianity, Islam, anything else, that religion is going to be used as a way to express your sickness, You're going to use it in some way, and this is what we see happen. People believe they're doing this or that. They're doing the right thing. They're doing the best thing for Allah, for God, for whatever. They're just crazy. But religion kind of played a role. Now on to crazy people. I've said before, this shouldn't be a gun restriction issue. This needs to be, what are we doing with the mentally ill? What are we doing? How are we going to protect them? How are we going to find, diagnose, and get them well? Because this guy, his mother said, hasn't been seen in 5 years. 5 years. And even then, many, they knew he was in trouble. They knew he had a problem with drugs. And he had mental issues. They knew that. 5 years. And he just wound up in Ottawa in a home. And 8 a.m, somebody pulled the fire alarm. He slipped out, got a gun, and now he's shooting people. We need to drop this stigma about mentally ill. We need to stop it. Because when we have this stigma, when we allow it to flourish, what you start doing is you look at somebody who's like, yeah, I've got borderline personality disorder, or I'm schizophrenic. And you go, oh, well, you're just a dumbass. You're just a weirdo. Get out of here. You know, what's wrong with you? Just get better. No, this person needs help. They're sick. They're not going to go to some social worker and be all better all of a sudden. We need to find a way to help these people because they're going to snap. They're just going to. Whether you diagnose them or not, the illness is there always. And then one day they're going to snap and they're going to find some way to do something. The only way to help them is to get better about diagnosing and treating. And that starts with dropping the stigma. That starts with, how can we help? That starts with trying to find people and getting them help. Not, oh, come in and get yourself help. Go get yourself help for that. No. It needs to be, oh, okay, how can I help you? How can we help you? That needs to be it, because too many times I hear it on an individual level. Well, you need to get helped out. You need to go get yourself checked out. You need to go get help for that. Never, let's help you. How can I help you? How can we help you? Never that. Then the government, nothing. They get a home here and there, but it's just, it's the inmates running the asylum. It's just, you get a bed and group therapy from a guy who hates being there. Some guy with maybe a 4-year bachelor's in psychology trying to be group therapy, trying to run group therapy for a bunch of really sick people. And they call that help. Meanwhile, what are those, each one of those drones and the missiles they fire, what do those cost? The ones that are hitting ISIS. The ones that are hitting, people that haven't directly attacked America in any way. How much do those cost? Oh, okay. Declared war yet? No? Okay. Let's do some news. All right, we got a good bit of news to talk about today. We're going to talk a little bit more about Ferguson, Missouri, because this is from the Associated Press, the big story. In Ferguson, Missouri, police prepare for grand jury decision. Dayline Ferguson. Missouri police have been brushing up on constitutional rights and stocking up on riot gear to prepare for a grand jury's decision about whether to charge a white police officer who fatally shot a black 18-year-old in suburban St. Louis. The preparations are aimed at avoiding a renewed outbreak of violence during the potentially large demonstrations that could follow an announcement of whether Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson will face a criminal trial for the August 9th death of Michael Brown. Police and protesters have repeatedly clashed since the shooting, which prompted a national conversation about race and police tactics. Images of officers in riot gear and armored vehicles confronting protesters have drawn widespread criticism. Many protesters want Wilson indicted for the murder. Grand jury proceedings are secret, but legal analysts say recently leaked information about Wilson's testimony to investigators may be an attempt to prepare the public for the possibility that he might not be charged. The decision could be made public within the next month. And they go on to give a rundown about what happened. But the idea is the police now in Ferguson, do you think they may have an inside track from the prosecutor on how the grand jury is going? Because it's supposed to be secret, right? But the prosecutor is the one that runs it. The prosecutor is the one that decides what evidence to show, et cetera, and how, shall we say, feverishly he presents his case. Now, I was remiss in thinking that a grand jury was completely and utterly independent. In fact, it is an arm of the prosecutor. It is a prosecutorial, oh, that word always trips me up. It is a prosecutorial mechanism. And the prosecutor could file charges. The prosecutor in Ferguson could just say, I'm charging you, Darren Wilson, with the murder of Michael Brown because I have this evidence. And this evidence shows that at least there's probable cause to believe that you've committed this crime. Pfft, arrest. And we try you. That hasn't happened. But that same prosecutor is the one that is presenting evidence to the impaneled grand jury. What does that tell you? The prosecutor the whole time, since the day of the shooting, the prosecutor has had the authority to file a complaint, I believe that's the mechanism, against Officer Darren Wilson and charge him with a crime. That hasn't happened. The grand jury now has been impaneled for a long time, hearing a lot of evidence. In fact, they had to be extended so that they would hear only evidence on this shooting, and they have more time. They have until next year. But some analysts are saying a decision could be handed down within the month. Now we're hearing all about Darren Wilson and what he testified to in front of the grand jury. That leak came from somewhere. So here we have a prosecutor who could have charged but didn't, and is now responsible for presenting his client, the state of Missouri, presenting his case to a grand jury. And now we're hearing that, there may be some murmurs about, maybe it's not really a totally unjustified shooting. Now we hear reports of an autopsy that concludes that Brown was shot at close range. At least once. Maybe lend a little bit of credence to Darren Wilson's story. So you take all that evidence together on top of murmurs from the federal investigation, from the federal civil rights investigation. Because remember, the feds have been on this. They're there doing their own thing. And Darren Wilson hasn't been charged with anything. And murmurs are from sources close to that investigation, that they've reviewed Wilson's testimony, and some people believe, we don't think we have enough to charge him with anything. Darren Wilson's not getting charged with a crime. I don't think. I still think he did something wrong, but he's not. My guess, my very poorly educated guess, is that Darren Wilson isn't getting charged. And now police in Ferguson are having to prepare for the riots that will ensue. And again, I was remiss I thought originally that a grand jury was a lot more independent than they actually are. However, given all of it, the feds are down there investigating. The state is doing its own investigation. That's the current grand jury we're talking about. The prosecutor has the evidence and looked at it. And if there's no charge, there's no charge. That's it. Because the litmus test for a good old boys club, because the worry is that a bunch of yokels impaneled in a grand jury in Missouri, they might look at the evidence and say the white police officer didn't do anything wrong when he killed the black kid. Because we're a bunch of country-ass crackers down in Missouri. That's the worry. And a very legitimate one. Very legitimate. Okay, well, your barometer, your litmus test for a good old boys club, a good old boys grand jury at the state level is the federal investigation. It's the ability of the federal government somehow having jurisdiction over something that only involved residents of a state and, oh God, why the feds are involved, I don't know. But you have them down there, and they have the ability to charge Darren Wilson, too, with a civil rights violation. And they are down there at the behest of Barack Obama and former or soon-to-be-done Attorney General Eric Holder, who's made his bones on civil rights. That's been his tenure, civil rights. So you have a federal investigation headed by people heavily geared towards civil rights and stamping out civil rights violations. Never again show that this is wrong. They haven't charged Darren Wilson with anything. Nothing. I don't think Darren Wilson's getting charged. And you're going to have to live with that. You're just going to have to live with it. Because at some point, I think we're going to see all the evidence. I hope we're going to see all the evidence. Everything that was presented to the grand jury, I hope will become unsealed at some point. And I really, really, really want to see that. I want to see it. Because, again, well, I've been wrong before, but I'm making my decision or my proclamation that Darren Wilson did something wrong based on limited evidence. I know that it's limited. I wasn't there. I didn't see anything. I could be wrong. I just want to know the particulars of how I was wrong. And it's going to be tough to justify riots. It's going to be very tough when, and if, it's still an if the grand jury decides not to indict Darren Wilson, it's going to be tough to justify rioting. It's going to be tough to justify doing that at immediately following this decision. It's going to be tough. I could justify riots. You know when I could have justified widespread rioting? In the wake of the shooting and the protests and the police presence with the MRAPs and the tear gas and all those things. That's when I would have justified, I would have been behind you with rioting. Okay, because now it's not about Mike Brown. It's about the police response, the police presence, the militarization, and using military might to quell protests. That is wrong. Cannot happen. Go ahead and riot. But now, you're just mad that the process didn't come out your way. And the people, the investigation, the feds, I was going to say the federales, the feds down there are the guard against a good old boys club or a guard against an Alabama, praise be to Dale, kind of grand jury decision. And if they don't charge him, that's that. Darren Wilson, not a criminal. And we're just going to have you just have to accept that. You gotta. That's just, it sucks. A lot of people have a lot of emotion wrapped up in this. Believe me, I've seen it on Twitter. A lot of people on Twitter being, oh yeah. I saw there's actually a guy who very clearly what side he's on. But he tries to lay down facts about what transpired the day Michael Brown was shot. And here's how bad it's gotten. Here's how bad the sensationalism goes. I started to go down that path, and thankfully, I've had the ability to kind of peel back a little bit. ease off the throttle and go, wait a minute, hold on. Let's just let the process play out. This guy, journalist, calls himself a journalist, done nothing but write about Mike Brown, Ferguson, Missouri, Darren Wilson, this whole thing for the last couple months. And in a story I read this week, he detailed the facts of what we know happened that day. Okay? So here this guy, this journalist, this reporter is detailing facts, okay? News, factual reporting of what happened that day. One of his points was Darren Wilson angrily threw his vehicle into reverse. Okay? That's how bad it's gotten. It's gotten so bad that even when somebody says, wait, hold on, I'm going to strip all editorial from this and I'm just going to give you the facts. All right? Which is good, because that's a great way to make a case. You say, I'm going to take all editorial crap out of this. I'm just going to present you with the facts. And the facts alone should make you question this and that and the other thing. But even then, his facts, quote facts, are editorialized. Darren Wilson angrily threw his vehicle in reverse. I stopped reading at that point. You're done. You're an idiot. It's clear what you want. Just like it's clear what everybody wants from this grand jury. Don't try to say that this is going to be justice. Don't try to say that putting Darren Wilson on trial is going to be justice. Don't try to tell me that. Don't you dare. Especially if the feds don't even indict him on anything. Don't you dare tell me this is about justice. This is about satisfying your outrage, nothing more. You don't like Darren Wilson because you think he's a racist. You think he is. Maybe he is. I don't know. I don't know the guy. You think he's a murderer. You've assumed in your head that Darren Wilson is a racist murderer. And you want him put in jail for that. But, we can't really do that. So, indict him. Well, the indictment might not come down because the grand jury is reviewing evidence, and the evidence as presented may not lead them to believe that there's any reason to arrest him and charge him with this crime. Well, just put him on trial for anything because that'll be justice. No, it's not justice. At that point, it's no longer justice. It's about your bloodlust. You just want blood in some form from Darren Wilson, from the Ferguson Police Department. Because of all the things, not only the shooting, things that transpired before. Ferguson doesn't have at all the greatest reputation with dealing with black people, with their predominantly white police force, and all the things that happened after the shooting. You want somebody to pay for that, and you've honed in on Darren Wilson. And it might not happen, but you're going to be outraged and say, no, it should, and you're going to call that justice. It's not. It's not justice. Putting that man on trial, if the state grand jury or the local grand jury doesn't indict him, and if the federal government does not indict him, that man isn't a criminal and has done nothing illegal. You just have to accept that. That is justice. Let's bring it home. Woo! Another great episode of The Lefty Show. I thank you all for joining. I had a great time putting on the show for you. I hope you had a great time listening. Thank you to everybody for watching, liking, favoriting, subscribing on YouTube. YouTube.com/LeftyOX is where you can go to find the show in its YouTube formation. You can also find gaming and vlogging content there. YouTube.com/LeftyOX. Thank you to everybody that's been donating. I'mRaising.com/643 Productions is where you can go if you want to donate to the show. All donations graciously accepted and very much appreciated. Thank you very much for everybody that has been donating. I'mRaising.com/643 Productions. Follow me on Twitter @Lefty643. Stay up to date on all the latest and greatest Lefty Show news. And thank you to everybody that has been helping the show grow by subscribing to the RSS feed, leftyshow.podbean.com, downloading the episodes, and sharing the show with friends, family, and coworkers. Find the show wherever you get your podcasts, Android, iOS, it doesn't matter. Search The Lefty Show. Be sure to subscribe and download. Anyway, guys, that's my time. I got to get out of here. Thank you for joining. I hope you enjoyed. Enjoy your weekend. I'll catch you next time. I'm out. Bye.
King of the world, baby. King of the world.